Formula One on 5 Live.
Hello from a chilly Las Vegas strip. The city that never sleeps is about to get a little bit louder as we are under the blaze of neon lights as the fans stream out of the casinos to fill the grandstands to catch the action of Free Practice 2. As I already mentioned, it's chilly here in Las Vegas and it's spitting with rain. Free Practice 1 saw Ferrari and Charles Leclerc top the timesheets, but the teams have been busy working away between the sessions, and so has Rosanna Tennant. She's been preparing herself for another chilly trip up and down pit lane. Rosanna, are you able to keep warm and dry?
Yeah, it's a big question, I think, Alice. It's a little bit colder than it was at the start of the first practice session. It's dropped down to 11 degrees, so still not in those single-digit temperatures we were expecting coming out here to Las Vegas. I'm actually just watching Lando Norris head back to the garage, and he's got a nice big puffer jacket on with a hood up, hands in his pockets, obviously trying to stay warm. But as you mentioned, we've had a little bit of light rain, really fine drizzle, and it's meant to rain again but stronger in about 35 minutes or so that could make the session very interesting. We are also expecting some rain overnight, but then it looks like it's going to be clear tomorrow, so this could be a really interesting session in terms of who goes out and whether they're going to risk being out, because Alice, as you know, this track could be very treacherous in the wet.
Certainly is. And is there any, can you get any sense of what tyres people are putting on at the moment? I heard some wheel guns going off down there.
Yes, tyres are being attached to the cars. The drivers are getting in. Oscar Piastri is already in his McLaren. Lando Norris, as I said, just made his way back to the garage, and he is just standing at the back, still dressed in his sort of home clothes kit, shall we say, but not putting his balaclava or helmet on. But all 4 tyres on his McLaren as well. But they've got these amazing tyre blankets on, which cover every little part of the tyre, so I can't see the colours of them. But we saw hard tyres in the first session, we saw mediums and softs, and of course it's going to be about long run pace in FP2.
Well, maybe you can pinch one of those tyre blankets and wrap yourself in them. Trust me, they get nice and warm. Joining myself, Alice Powell, in the commentary box is BBC F1's correspondent Andrew Benson, and it was quite a busy first free practice session and a strong one for Ferrari.
It was, and not a strong one for McLaren, so this rain, Alice, is really difficult for them, really bad news. I was speaking to someone at McLaren a few minutes ago, and they found out in the middle of our conversation that it was raining, and they used a rude word.
Can't tell us who that was.
I cannot tell you, I'm afraid, no. But it was. I said, so you didn't have a great session this morning, did you? I said this morning, because that's kind of what we say in Formula 1 when we talk about first practice. And they were like, no, they didn't. And I think that was reflected in the timesheets. Just on the fact that it's raining, I don't think any of the drivers will be especially excited about that. Fernando Alonso, who knows a thing or two about driving a Formula 1 car, was asked what it would be like if it was wet here in Las Vegas. He said, not fun at all.
No, it's certainly not. And not a fun morning for our championship leader, Lando Norris, who leads the standings going into this weekend. 24-point advantage over his teammate Oscar Piastri, with Max Verstappen sitting in third place. He could be ruled out of the championship battle this weekend. Lando Norris needs to outscore Max Verstappen by 9 points to really rule him out mathematically. So he trails 49 points with George Russell in fourth place, looking to have another strong weekend. Winner here last year. And then Charles Leclerc, who topped our timesheets this morning in fifth, and Lewis Hamilton, who said, quote, a nightmare season for him, in sixth place. And Kimi Antonelli, who's resurgent, had a fantastic podium last time out in Sao Paulo, in seventh, with Albon, Hulkenberg and Hadjar rounding out your top 10. So Andrew, it's looking fairly quiet out at the moment. I'm trying to have a look to see what tyres are being fitted onto Alex Albon's machinery, who had a strong free practice. He was second, and was Yuki Tsunoda as well. He was also one to have a very strong free practice one. I think you mentioned, Andrew, that possibly could have been a first time that he's outscored his teammate Max Verstappen in a session.
I think so. I haven't had time to check that actually, Alice, but I'm pretty sure Tsunoda's obviously not had a great all of the season apart from two, because he got drafted in after the first two races, and so it's really a surprise to see him ahead of Max Verstappen. I think it says quite a lot about the session that we saw and how relevant it was, which may be a bit of a reassurance from McLaren in a way. The track was obviously very dusty when it started. Alex Albon is not going to end up second quickest on the grid, I wouldn't have thought. And if Yuki Tsunoda out-qualifies Max Verstappen, well, I've got a hat I could eat. So
well,
maybe
we're in Las Vegas. Are you going to be putting your money on that?
Definitely not, no. Although some colleagues and friends of mine did say they were going to go and play roulette this evening. I might go. I'm not going to join in, but I might go and watch.
Well, maybe. But we've got a green light at the end of the pit lane. And the drivers, well, they're sitting tight pretty much at the moment. No one's making movements out of their garages. Lewis Hamilton with a really sparkly helmet, and that goes quite nicely with the lights here in Vegas. A city that never sleeps, the 6.2 kilometre circuit, a variation of corners, but those that favour more low speed setups. You've got that 1.92 kilometre straight on the Las Vegas Strip. You go flying past the Bellagio, the Paris Casino as well, and the Link, which we saw plenty of flooding there earlier on in the week. But joining us in the commentary box is, well, reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling. Won't be for much longer because we're going to be crowning an F1 Academy champion this weekend. And she's kicked Harry Benjamin out of the commentary box. Said he wasn't up to scratch, so stuck me in here.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry that I'm a bit late. I was running around the paddock club here in Vegas, but happy to be here in the comms box joining you, and it's shaping up to be an exciting weekend. It was actually just spitting a minute ago as I was walking over as well, so it's going to be interesting conditions for the drivers.
It will be, and we're probably not going to be seeing much action in these early stages. For those that want to sync up, we've got 58, 26, 25, 24 seconds remaining here in free practice 2, and track temperatures continuing to drop, and that's quite important, Abby, isn't it, for these drivers? And if they don't get much running here, of course they've got free practice 3, which is taking place tomorrow, Friday, because obviously running is all a day earlier here. It can be quite hard to get these tyres up to temperature, and we've seen plenty of lockups from several of the drivers, particularly down at turn 14 and down at turn 12 as well.
It's a really difficult conditions for the drivers. Watching on the Pitwall F1 Academy earlier, there was, again, like you said, lots of lockups, and it's really hard for the drivers to get any temperature into the tyres, especially as the sun has gone down and the clouds have kind of gone over. It's making it really hard for them. And I mean, in Formula 1 they have the luxury of tyre blankets, but they only do so much, and especially with the long straights here in Vegas, it's a long time where you're flat chat, and the surface of the temperature of the tyre actually cools down. So that's why we're seeing the lockups, not only because the track temp is getting lower, but because the straights are so long and there's no real ambient temperature. Surfaces are getting lower, and they can't really do anything going into the braking zones. They just become a bit of a passenger, and like say lockup, white lines here are a nightmare. And the track as well has like a sheen to it. When the sun goes, it loses so much grip. So it is a lot for the drivers to manage.
It certainly is. And do we have any movement down in pit lane at all, Rosanna?
Absolutely nothing. No one wanting to head out onto the track, but they are getting into their cars. I'm just watching Max Verstappen being strapped in, but no tyres on his Red Bull car at the moment. And the same is true for Yuki Tsunoda as well, next door on the left-hand side of the Red Bull garage. So they're taking their time, but keep an eye on that weather radar, because I'm seeing rain predicted to start in 26 minutes. So they'd be better off going out now, surely, and then coming back in, rather than missing an opportunity to get some more dry weather running, if indeed we do have dry weather for the rest of the weekend.
I was going to say exactly that, Rosanna. It's a really difficult decision for the teams and drivers, because it was raining a little bit as I came over from the paddock to the commentary box just before the start of the session, but not so much. And I don't know how wet the track is, obviously, but this could be the driest part of the day. And if it's going to rain in 24 minutes, it's quite a long lap. You don't get much running in 24 minutes. And if you don't go out on a slightly damp track, as you both know better than I do, then the track doesn't dry as quickly as if you do go out on a slightly damp track. So it would be better to get out now and at least get some running in if it is actually going to rain in about half an hour's time.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with you, Andrew, but the thing is as well, if there's been a bit of rain and it looks like it was only in kind of one sector, it wasn't throughout the whole track, it was very light in places, and that makes the white lines more dangerous. And then you're at the risk of, if you go out in the first 5 minutes, you hit a white line, then you're out for the whole hour's running. So maybe they're weighing it up and just leaving it an extra couple minutes to get that kind of 15-minute window before it rains. That's potentially what the teams are doing, but it's, as you say, it's quite risky, and I think it's best just to get out and learn as much as possible. You want to get as much information a street circuit like this, where there's not too much history at. You've got a lot to learn.
You often get this situation in Formula One where the teams kind of don't want to be the first person out because they sort of consider it to be almost sort of a humiliation that they're the ones who are sweeping the track for everybody else, But then you end up with this situation where they all end up losing out as a consequence. And as I say that, one of the Alpines has just popped out onto the track, Alice.
It certainly has, and it looks like we have got a Mercedes heading out as well, Rosanna.
Absolutely. George Russell has headed out, leaving his teammate Kimi Antonelli in the garage, and a second Alpine as well. And now everyone's starting to move. I think we're going to see, I can just see some Racing Bulls holding their drivers in, and a Haas car as well. So here we go, a little bit of action, because there are some fans in the grandstand. It is not packed out, but they are here to see action. And action is what they're going to get now, Alice.
It certainly is, Rosanna. George Russell, the first of the Mercedes, won this race here last year, and they had a very competitive car. Lewis Hamilton came from 10th on the grid. He would argue maybe should have been on pole position. He made a mistake in qualifying, which saw him slip down to 10th place. George Russell just trying to feed on the gas and got it squirming out of shape as he was applying it. And Mercedes are looking strong in the constructors, thanks to Antonelli's podium in Brazil and a strong result for George Russell last time out. They have catapulted themselves up into second place in the Constructors' Championship. McLaren, of course, 358-point lead are the Constructors' Championship. And Red Bull trail 32 points, so they'll be hoping that Yuki Tsunoda's form that was in free practice one continues, because this championship battle is pretty intense, with Ferrari hoping to find more form. 4 points behind Red Bull in fourth place. Then Williams a little bit further back, 251 points they are, so that is settled there for fifth place. But Racing Bulls are charging them down in sixth place, 29 points behind, with Aston Martin a further 10 points back, Haas 2 points back, down in eighth, Kick Sauber 8, and then Alpine unfortunately down in 10th place, 40 points behind Sauber. So Abby, we've had a little bit of rain. How do the drivers approach this? Because it's an unknown. As you said, they've not been on circuit here in Vegas when it's been wet.
Yeah, as you say, it's a massive unknown. I mean, they'll know from the likes of Singapore and other street circuits on the calendar when it's rained, although the rookies won't have experience like that. But when it rains, it's really, really dependent on where you put the car. If you're braking on a white line, I mean, actually, saying that Melbourne was wet. So similarly to there, if you're braking on a white line, you're going to have a lockup, you're going to go straight forward, and here the runoff, you're going down an escape road and you've got to reverse or do a UE. It's really not the most ideal situation, so it's a matter of building up to it, finding if there are any slippery bits of the track, as we are just seeing Ollie Behrman saying the track is slippery. So definitely feeling that track temp coming down and the partial bit of rain that has been had, but you don't want to risk it all now. There's no point, as I said. You've got to just be tidy, get the data that you need for the team, and build that tyre temp. To be honest, that's the main thing, as we see George Russell weaving on the straight.
Now that moment that we saw George Russell have on his out lap before the flying lap that he's just on at the moment on the strip, he was at turns 7 and 8, which is a sort of tricky little chicane around the sphere where it looks like you have to brake and turn on entry. Is that right? What is making it so difficult for all the drivers? We saw Oscar Piastri have a moment there earlier and a couple of others. Yeah,
well, when you're having to brake and turn on the entry, we call that a combination corner. So you're asking a lot of the tyre. That's when you're asking the most of the tyre, the G's that you're putting on it in the braking phase. The car wants to go forward, and then whilst you're turning, the tyre can't do two things at once when it's not in, it's not got the temperature, and that's what makes it really prone to locking up. You're asking a lot. We call it the slip angle. So when you're turning and go over the slip angle a little bit, whilst adding that brake, especially Lewis Hamilton or one of the Ferraris getting really, really, really on the throttle and sideways coming out of one of the corners here. But it makes it incredibly difficult, and here being an anti-clockwise track, that front left doesn't really get much work. So it doesn't get put to work, it doesn't generate much temperature, and that will be the difficulty for these drivers.
Certainly is. And just to put it into context, the fastest lap time this morning set by Charles Leclerc was a 1:34.802. Liam Lawson heads the times at the moment with a 1:46.854. These times will continue to come down, of course, if that's the big if we don't receive any rain. So I'm going to say we're going to throw down to our weather lady down in pit lane. Is it spitting at all still, Rosanna?
It has abated. I think we're going to get away with it for a few minutes at least. The weather apps are saying different things. My actual location is saying that the rain now won't begin until 1 o'clock in the morning, which of course will wash away all the grip that is being laid down by the 20 Formula One cars now. And then I've saved Las Vegas as a location on my weather app, and it's saying the rain should be finishing in about 20 minutes, but I can tell you it's already finished. So much confusion, I would say. But the temperatures have dropped. It's around about 11 degrees, 10 degrees. And I was watching the Ferrari drivers come out of their garages, and it was Lewis Hamilton who went first, then Charles Leclerc, and both drivers weaving down the pit lane to start generating that tyre temperature. So important to start doing that right from the get-go. A little bit dangerous, I always think, in the pit lane.
Yeah, it certainly is, Rosanna, as Charles Leclerc now is making his way through. And from our camera angles that we are getting to see, you can just see the patches. It is so tricky for the drivers here, but Colapinto, he's put himself to the top of the times, at least for now, 1:37.779. So, Abby, these times are continuing to come down.
Yeah, well, notably Alpine were one of the first teams out the pit, well, they were the first team out the pit lane, so they'll be the ones on doing the most laps. They've got the most time on that tyre, and they're just getting the most temperature. At the end of the day, if you're getting temperature in this tyre, you're going to keep going quicker and quicker. It's going to be one of them that you're not going to get the peak on the first lap. It's something unusual in Formula One to see, but with the temperatures as low as they are, that's what we will, as we're listening to Charles Leclerc's on board, and he's getting a bit of snap of oversteer on the entry. It's looking really tough for them, especially on traction.
It is, and it's been a bit of a tough couple of weeks, I would say, for Ferrari. They had a pretty awful Sao Paulo Grand Prix, and of course the Ferrari chairman, John Elkann, was quite vocal, Andrew, in saying the drivers need to do less talking and more focusing on the driving. Would you say that's fair?
I don't think anyone in the paddock thinks that's fair. I mean, look, Lewis Hamilton's not had the greatest season of his career. That's an understatement, but I don't think we can say he's not been trying. It's very clear how much it means to him. He's been very, he's been through the mill in terms of emotions, and I thought it was quite telling yesterday that Charles Leclerc managed to stay on message. They'd obviously been briefed heavily before their press conferences yesterday. Lewis Hamilton, not so much. Rosanna did a really good job with a question that she asked him, and I asked him whether it was fair to say that he could that he could focus more on his driving, and he said not really. I wake up thinking about driving, I go to sleep thinking about driving, and I think about it when I am asleep. So I don't know what John Elkann was trying to achieve with those comments. The way Ferrari is spinning it, which was also what the drivers were saying yesterday, was that it was all meant to be a motivating speech for the team. And Charles Leclerc said that Elkann had phoned him before he made the comments, telling him that that's what was the intent. But it didn't come across that way. It came across that, in the manner that things often do at Ferrari, where things start to go wrong and eventually the blame game starts. And that's where Rosanna's question was focused with Lewis Hamilton, and he kind of dodged. In fact, he denied that there was a blame culture at Ferrari, but he acknowledged in his initial response to answer that she'd hit a bit of a nerve with that point that she made by almost he sort of made an admiring remark about trust you to come up with that good question. So just those few remarks from Lewis Hamilton kind of gave the game away rather. And I think the surprising thing about Elkann's comments in a way was that although it seems that they were triggered by Hamilton saying that this season was a nightmare and he'd been living it for a while, he's just being honest, and he went on to say in the same interview after the race that he fully believed in the team and he was fully committed to the team, and he carried on saying the same things yesterday. So why Elkann thought that the drivers, especially Charles Leclerc, who's had an absolutely outstanding season in the other Ferrari, needed any kind of pep talk is kind of beyond me and most of the people I've been speaking to this weekend.
Well, talking of Lewis Hamilton, that's the sound you can hear riding on board as he hits the brakes into turn 12. He just misses the barrier on the exit. Get it rotated, get on the throttle, and he'll head down the Las Vegas Strip. Flies past the Bellagio. Fountains are putting on a great display, but they shouldn't be watching that. They should be watching the track action. The Paris Hotel and Casino will be on driver's right-hand side. He gets a little bit of traffic, just has to go down the inside. I think that was Hulkenberg he was trying to avoid, but Hamilton squirts out, makes the run through now, down and flips through past our commentary box window through turn 17, and Max Verstappen has bolted Lewis Hamilton slightly there, so I expect Hamilton will be on the radio complaining of some traffic, but he was fastest in the first, fastest in the middle sector, and not so great in that final sector, but he's down now into the 135s, 135.338. So that just shows, Abby, track evolution is pretty big here, particularly for a street circuit, but it's quite surprising that how it's tied it up quite nicely with these drops of rain that we had at the start of the session.
Yeah, I mean, in that's what we just saw. If I was Hamilton, I would be furious that the traffic there from Hulkenberg. I mean, he's experienced enough to know better. It was in the braking zone after almost 2 kilometres straight, so there was enough time for him to get out of the way. And then Verstappen again in the last corner, that would really frustrate me. But as you say, the track evolution is very big, and the times are continuing to tumble. Getting that medium tyre activated, it takes a bit more work than maybe the likes of the soft tyre.
Yeah, I think the Verstappen one was, at least the way I saw it on the television screen, I may have got it wrong, but it seems a little bit more understandable than the Hulkenberg one. Hulkenberg was just tooling around on an outlap or an inlap, whatever it was, whereas Verstappen was starting a flying lap, as it looked to me as Hamilton was finishing one. So I can see why Verstappen didn't want to back off and let Hamilton through at that point, because it would have ruined the start of his own lap. But it's only a practice session. These things sometimes get marked by the stewards. I've not seen that one come up yet on the timing screens as something that's been noted, but nothing ever happens because it is just a practice session.
It certainly is, and with 42 minutes and 43 seconds remaining, it's George Russell that leading the times. They're continuing to tumble in this order, even as I'm staring at it right now, keeps constantly changing. 135.066, and just popping up into second place. 2/10 off is Charles Leclerc from Hamilton, a further 2/10 back. Albon in fifth, who had a strong free practice one, actually, was in second place. Hadjar in fifth. Stroll, a good showing so far for the Aston Martin driver, in sixth. From Behrman, Lawson, Verstappen and Tsunoda rounding out the top 10, with Antonelli, who we're riding on board with now as he's jumping onto the brakes down into turn 14, all over the curb on the right hand side, missing that wall on 16, which caught Franco Colapinto out in qualifying last year. Is in 12th, but he'll be hoping to make his way further up the order. Let's see where this promotes him up into second place, 700ths of a second behind his teammate. Colapinto 13th, with Piastri down in 14th, Ocon 15th. From Hulkenberg, Alonso, Norris, Sainz and Bortoleto rounding out our 20 cars, as Bortoleto goes straight on down into 12. And this, Abby, riding on board with Lewis Hamilton, we're catching a replay of this traffic, and so close to missing the back of Hulkenberg down in 14. I mean, I agree with you, that was a bit silly of Hulkenberg, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was enough time for him to pull over. There was Verstappen, I think, Tsunoda beforehand, and then there was also a V-car before that managed to get out the way. And yeah, just as he's hitting the brakes, Hulkenberg gets closer and closer, and completely really affects his last sector. We saw him go purple, and that last sector didn't make as much of an improvement as maybe he would have liked. But I have to say, I always love seeing the onboard of this circuit, because it is incredible to see them going down the strip, and you see the flashing lights. I mean, I've driven Singapore, and you have the floodlights there anyway, but here you've got the hotels and the fountain and the casinos, all the atmosphere is like no other, and it's really cool to see that on board and to get a real big feel for it.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? These lights, it's so bright, it's almost too much, isn't it, when you walk around the streets here at Las Vegas? Particularly what throws me is the sphere, how bright that is for the drivers when they're trying to be fully focused on that line, making no mistakes. And the sphere has 1.2 million LED panels, so you can imagine how bright it really is, as George Russell permits even more so at the top of the times of 1:34.430. Norris, who had a bit of a struggle, I would say, for his standards in the first free practice session, is in second place, with Oscar Piastri a feather behind him in third place. Now, it could be a pivotal weekend, couldn't it, for our championship challenge between Norris, Piastri, and we'll include Max Verstappen in that as well. Everyone talked about how pivotal Sao Paulo was, and ultimately could well be, but this could be the weekend where it's not decided, but certainly will then push it into maybe being decided in Qatar.
Yeah, I mean, as it keeps getting closer and closer to the end of the season, it's just it's becoming more and more a pressure-filled situation, and they can't make mistakes. Everyone at the top, Verstappen, obviously, if he wants to keep his hopes alive, he doesn't want to make mistakes. Norris, he wants to maintain that lead, as we're seeing Max Verstappen get sideways over a curb, finding the limit as he always does. But it's becoming a real big pressure cooker situation for all three of them at the top of the championship. And I mean, you say it was a bad one for Norris in FP1, you know, it was P6, but he was ahead of Piastri still. That's all he has to do, is be ahead of Piastri and within an arm's length of Max, and he has this. And what he's been doing the past couple of race weekends, you know, Sao Paulo and Mexico, they were perfect weekends for him, and he just needs to keep doing what he's doing, keep consistent, keep tidy. He's now at a place where he doesn't have to be, you know, he doesn't need to beat George Russell or the likes of that, but he just needs to be ahead of Oscar, and he's got this in the bag. Although winning will help him kind of stretch that gap and make it possible in Qatar, which for sure, that's, as a racing driver, that's what he's going to be wanting to do it around early, take that pressure off going into the final race. But it's not always as simple as that.
It certainly isn't, and plenty of talk of it possibly being wrapped up, or at least Norris's aim to wrap it up in the sprint in Qatar. And Lando Norris, and his 150th career Grand Prix this weekend, got a special designed helmet as well, and he's also attempting to win his third Grand Prix in a row for the first time in his career. But Oscar, he's not finished on the podium for the last 5 Grand Prix. So what's happened there, Andrew, with Oscar? There's been talks of maybe the upgrade that he potentially didn't take earlier on in the season could have been something that he might be regretting now, in terms of Lando took that upgrade and he seems to be working really well for him.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Now, that was a kind of a theory that I had, as Lewis Hamilton's just taken the fastest time off George Russell. What you're talking about is the front suspension geometry change that they introduced in Canada, which was aimed at helping Lando Norris primarily because he was struggling with feel from the front axle in the first few races, and that was preventing him confidently pushing to the limit and making mistakes when he was really going for it in qualifying. And of course, in Formula One, if you end up behind your teammate in qualifying, it's quite hard to beat them in the race if you don't get them off the start line. I had a theory that perhaps well, it's definitely true that that's unlocked a sort of virtuous circle for Norris in terms of the performance of the car, in terms of exploiting what was available within it. I had a theory that as a consequence, perhaps Piastri had lost out from that because he hadn't taken it because he was already in a confident position with the car. But I was talking to someone at McLaren who I trust and respect very much yesterday, and they were kind of veering me off that theory. They didn't think it was really that. I'm a little bit perplexed, I have to be honest, as to what's happened with Piastri. They've given us explanations from race to race, particularly in Austin and Mexico, where they were saying that he was struggling with the low grip surface there and a particular driving style that was required as a consequence of that, and he wasn't as comfortable with that as Norris was. He wasn't as comfortable with the car sliding underneath him as Norris was. What I didn't understand about that theory, and I'd like to throw it at you two as racing drivers, is that implies, this comment from Andrea Stella, the McLaren team principal, it implies that Formula 1 cars aren't sliding all the time, but they are. That's what you're doing as a racing driver. It doesn't look like it, but you've always got a degree of slip in the car, haven't you? You're always controlling it on the limit in a sort of a degree of a few degrees beyond the sort of the sort of straight trajectory, if you like, in terms of the slide. You called it the slip angle earlier, Abby. So I don't quite understand what Stella means by that. That Piastri was struggling with that more at these low grip surfaces than he had been at circuits before, especially because it's not like they were the only low grip tracks that he'd been at. You know, Canada was another low grip track, Melbourne's a low grip track, Monaco's a low grip track. Okay, Norris won in Monaco, but Piastri hadn't been off the pace. And then of course the other races where he's been struggling, that wasn't the case, but he's still in Brazil. Piastri's been talking about Brazil as a more positive weekend, but he was still a couple of tenths off Norris in qualifying, so it wasn't like he was there where he'd been earlier in the season. So puzzling for me.
Certainly is. And Rosanna, are you surprised as well with how it's turned out so far in the second half of the season for Oscar Piastri?
Yeah, it's been such an interesting season, hasn't it? With Oscar Piastri's form dipping and Lando Norris's turning completely around just when it really matters. And to talk about that front suspension and the steering change in Montreal, Andrew, I thought it was really interesting yesterday in the press conference, and we were there together when Lando Norris was talking about those changes, and he said, you know, it wasn't a guaranteed, and he said when we put it on, it wasn't like, oh, this feels way better. He said it was more like, we, McLaren, think it's better. If you don't feel anything, well, we'll just leave it on because we think it's better, and it's up to him to work it out. So it's interesting, isn't it? It didn't actually give them like a guaranteed chance of success. It's just something that the team thought might benefit him. So a really interesting pivotal point perhaps in the season, which came with no guarantees.
Yeah, it's clear that it did help him. There's no question about that. And he's stuck with it all year. And he's not been... I think the key tell, Rosanna, for me, is that up until that point, okay, he did win Monaco the weekend, the race before, but up until that point, he was complaining about that issue with the front axle quite often at race weekends. And of course, when drivers are behind their teammates, they do complain a bit more than if they're in front. Oh dear, that's Ollie Behrman having a very big lock up into the corner at the end of the strip there. But he stopped doing that as soon as that suspension part went on the car, basically. But I want to come back to that question I was asking you both about the sliding on the low grip surfaces and not really understanding what they were getting at and whether you did.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, as we've seen Lando Norris take an excursion around the track, making a little mistake there. But yeah, it could be just that performance window. I like to see it as the drivability of a car in the performance window. It can get bigger or smaller, and especially when you're on a lower grip circuit, that you're walking more of a tightrope. That's what I like to say. You're walking a tightrope, and the margin for error is so much bigger, and the margin for perfection is so much slimmer, and it's really hard to find that balance and to find that edge, and especially when it's cold. And maybe that feeling, whatever Lando has changed, has given him that confidence to find that edge a little bit more in circuits like this. And of course we've definitely seen that. Even now we're seeing Oscar is 6 tenths off of his teammate in P8, and Lando's P2 just jumped by Charles Leclerc. So it definitely shows. I think that's maybe what it is. He's just struggling to find that tightrope in these cooler conditions. Maybe we see him go to Qatar, and all of a sudden it's the Oscar that we saw at the start of the season again, where it's warmer and you get the tyres in more. Because even Brazil was a crazy warm race. I think the track was, because it kept spitting, it was still quite low grip there to what I think they expected. So I think maybe we'll see things change going to Qatar and Abu Dhabi, because I think they're tracks that suit Oscar better and they're higher grip. But he can't afford to lose this ground in the tracks like here, where it's cooler, it's less grip, and he's struggling to walk that tightrope on the car.
Certainly could be. Liam Lawson out on the soft tyres, the first driver to do so, and another driver that needs to start having some good results. He had a fairly strong Sao Paulo. Rosanna, is there anyone else that's going to venture out on this soft tyre?
I'm not sure. It's a little bit quiet. We've got quite a lot of busy mechanics in the Red Bull garages, and I need your expert opinion, I think, because the masking tape is out once again, and the tyres are off Max Verstappen's car, so I can see the cake tins, and the mechanics are busy taping around and around the cake tins. Now, Is this in an attempt to try and... tell me first of all what cake tin is. Sorry, I'm using that like I'm on Great British Bake Off. But why are they taping it up? Is that to help generate temperature at all with the tyres being so difficult to turn on here?
Yeah, I'd assume so. I think Benny has something to add with that. He might have a better idea of the cake tin situation.
No, I agree with you. It is to do with temperature as far as I'm aware. You know, those cake tins that you're talking about, Rosanna, they're part of a very intricate series of aerodynamic shapings that they have within the wheels. And the teams have really... they've really evolved the designs inside the wheels. We don't really see it, unfortunately, too much, but it's incredible the amount of the complexity that there is inside the wheels, and it's all about the combination between getting the right amount of heat into the tyres from the brakes, effectively, but not too much. And it's cold here in Las Vegas. It's 14 degrees air temperature, 16 to close to 17 degrees track temperature, and by taping up some of the holes, you're allowing more heat to get to certain places.
I've just realised, were you calling the brake ducts cake tins?
Yeah, because there's a kind of carbon, it looks like a cake tin. It's like a carbon casing around the upright area, basically, inside the tyre.
You really put me off with the cake tins. I get what you're meaning now. Yeah. As Benny said, the blanking, so they'll be blanking it off with the tape to mean that there's less wind basically on the braking, which means that the brake temps are higher and generates more core temp. So I understand more now.
But that's hugely important, because we've just seen numerous lockups from drivers. Lawson being one who's promoted himself up into P2, of course, on the soft tyre. He's a tenth and a half off Charles Leclerc, who's on the medium, and Hadjar, he's down in 14th, was out on the soft tyre and has had a gigantic lockup down into 14.
So it doesn't look like you brake too late, unless you know what happens. We are checking the lines. No clue.
So that's Hadjar getting some advice from his engineer. But could this be these brake temperatures, Abby? Because I was obviously with you last week, actually, in Austria when it was 4 degrees. And you had some experiences with brake temperatures. So the drivers are going to be even more important for them here, particularly with that long 1.92 kilometre strip straight into a heavy braking zone at turn 14.
Yes, it was a very bitter morning in Red Bull Ring. It was freezing, there was ice at times, so I mean not quite what they're experiencing here at Las Vegas, but it is so important, and having that tool, I got to experience that tool that I've not had all year. As we're seeing a Ferrari stopped in their later end of the lap, doing reversing and getting out of that pickle he's got himself in. But yeah, it's a tool that I've only just recently started to have with the brake ducts, and it is, as I say, it's a really big tool, and you can get it really wrong and you can get it really right, and it's been interesting to learn more about how they operate and how it can have such an effect on performance, as we're seeing on board with Charles Leclerc going into, I think it's turn 7, yeah, 7, 8, 9, going into the combination, and just can't get it in. He's on the soft tyre and sails straight on.
Managed to get it stopped before making any impact with the barrier, but he's going to have a big flat spot on that inside left front tyre, as that would have certainly affected, I think that's Lando Norris coming through. So not an ideal start for many of those out on the soft tyres. High track evolution, we've already exceeded the lap time that was set in free practice 2 this time last year, so we're deep into the 1:33s. Hadjar is out for another go on the soft tyre. He just 100th of a second off as he crosses the timing beam in sector 2, down in sector 3. DRS wide open past the Bellagio. Max Verstappen in the background trying to generate some tyre temperature, slams on the brakes, manages to get it stopped, get it rotated. A little bit of traffic of Ollie Behrman as he makes his way through turn 16. This could be potentially a good lap from Isaac Hadjar.
There was not only Ollie Behrman, but he had to go between the Ferrari as well of I think it was Hamilton, so there was 2 cars there that he kind of had to thread the needle. I cringed in my seat a little bit there.
Pretty much everyone then is out on the soft tyre, all bar Esteban Ocon, as Kimi Antonelli, another driver that's struggling, and is he going to have a brush of the wall? Wow.
How close would you like it?
Yeah, I think that's what you call close enough, extremely close on the exit of turn 12. So we're going to see these times start to tumble, and Charles Leclerc's looking pretty happy at the top of the times at the moment. As Carlos Sainz now comes through turn 5, gets very close to the wall, and through sector 1, Abby, is already 0.2 of a second up on the Ferrari. But just as I say that, runs wide, and I think, yeah, that was caused the traffic. There's that Esteban Ocon that's just come out of the pits on the soft tyre.
That's incredibly frustrating. That was Carlos's first run on this. I think it looks like the Haas is actually kind of pulling beside. He's put his rain light on to say sorry. I think that was... I'm really sorry, Carlos. That was not intentional at all. But you find ways to communicate with each other in the car. But
hand gestures and rain lights, then, is that the two main tools?
A little bit of sign language and some lights to throw in there, although you don't really want many more lights here. There's too much in Vegas. There's enough in Vegas, there is. So
there certainly is. George Russell, 5th at the moment. He's bolted on the soft tyre as he checks his mirrors left to right, trying to generate again some track temperature, crawling along fairly slowly just to try and keep out of the way. Lando Norris, though, he has set the fastest first sector of anyone and the fastest second sector, so he's on a pretty decent lap.
I think that's the really hard thing with here, is that you're on your out lap, you want to generate as much temperature as possible, but then you also don't want to get in the way of anyone. So you're kind of balancing that, and it's a real frustrating thing, because I've had it even with myself. I'm not wanting to get in people's way, but then also I'm not able to warm up how I want. So then your first push lap is compromised. Maybe that's why we saw on the soft tyre Charles have his moment locking up, because he didn't really get the tyre in the window he wanted to.
So Lando Norris now jumps to the top of the times, 0.02 of a second off Kimi Antonelli. Mercedes, of course, topped every single session here last year and nearly had a clean sweep, all bar Lando Norris pinching the fastest lap in the race from them, but looking slightly better, I would say, at least for now, for McLaren during this pre-practice session.
Exactly, I was going to say just that, Alice. We're still at the sort of relative beginning of these soft tyre qualifying simulation runs, but considering McLaren were not very happy with their first session this morning, it does look like they've got the car in a much better place, and Lando Norris particularly, I wouldn't say the same about Oscar Piastri so far, but Lando Norris particularly seems to be in a much more competitive place, and he's trading times with the Mercedes. Also worth saying, I think, that Kimi Antonelli, he's finally beginning to show. He had a very strong result in Brazil, as we all know, and he's finally beginning to show what we all thought he would show this year as a very highly touted rookie, and he's continuing this weekend with a very strong showing, matching George Russell at the moment. Well, he's ahead of him at the moment, but so far today he's been matching him lap for lap pretty much, so that's encouraging for Mercedes as well. And I think Piastri, he's out on a set of soft tyres as well. We're just seeing him getting out of George Russell's way on his flying lap at the end of the straight, so we're about to see, hopefully, Alice, what Oscar Piastri can manage in McLaren.
Yeah, 21.5 minutes of the session remaining, as Lando Norris just came on the radio there reporting some light drizzle in the final sector as the red flag has come out. I'm just going to have a look on the driver tracker to see if we can see if anyone is stopped, and it doesn't look like there is. Everyone seems to be going round, Abby.
I really hope it's not another drain cover situation as we got in the first year of this Grand Prix. I mean, as you say, everyone's still moving, so it could be a track thing. You never know with street circuits. I think that's and you've got to be so precarious about it, and the driver's safety is very important. But I don't know if you've got anything to add about that, Benny.
I haven't, but what I can say is that at least we know if it is a train cover, we're not going to have the same sort of night as we had 2 years ago.
Yeah, but there's 20 minutes
there's only 20 minutes left, exactly. Let's find out. I'm sure sooner or later we'll get a replay of something showing us what has gone on.
Yeah, I mean, looking we saw some pictures of Toto Wolff, and he looks perplexed. So It's not down to an on-track incident, I don't think, all the drivers going round.
Well, I hope you're keeping safe down in pit lane, Rosanna, because all the cars are heading your way.
Yeah, it suddenly gets very busy when a red flag is thrown, and I quite like seeing the sphere lit up all red to indicate a red flag. But as you can hear, cars charging past me. See Aston Martin of Lance Stroll coming in. Red Bull are getting ready to receive their drivers. They've been getting everything ready for a pit stop, and now the drivers are coming in, all the mechanics are coming out. An Alpine going past me, Colin Pinto going past, and here comes the Red Bull. It was almost like they weren't ready for Yuki Tsunoda, but everyone coming back in, and hopefully we'll find out why this red flag has been thrown.
Yes, hopefully we certainly will. And while we have this red flag, it's a good time to go running through the order. And of course, the time does not stop. It continues to tick. Stops in a qualifying session, but not a free practice. So just 19 minutes of the session remaining. And it's Lando Norris that is at the top of the times at the moment, a 1:33.602 from Antonelli. Charles Leclerc in third place, 1.5 tenths off, with Hulkenberg doing a good showing in the Sauber so far during this session. Just 2.5 tenths off Norris from Hadjar. Lawson in 6th place. Russell, who before the red flag was thrown, had set the fastest first sector of anyone and a very competitive middle sector. So his lap was of course halted by the red flag, but he could have been propelled up to the top of the times. But for now, 4 tenths off in 7th place. Alex Albon, again, a decent showing, as Lewis Hamilton is getting out of the car. So maybe he knows something that we don't. Maybe it's a quick pit stop for him and he'll be hopping back in. And Rosanna, I believe you've got a little bit more information for us on the red flag. If Rosanna is down there, maybe not.
Hello.
There she is.
Hello. Yeah, I'm hearing it's a manhole cover. That is what I'm hearing in the pit lane, and it has just started to rain as well. So those drivers and teams are lucky that they got out to do some dry weather running. But a manhole cover is just giving me sort of trauma, I think, thinking back to 2023 with all of that debacle. So I wonder where it is. Hopefully we'll see fairly shortly where it is.
Yes, we've been here before, haven't we, Andrew?
We have. What's weird is that I think we've talked about this before, haven't we, both of you? In the last few races, we've been getting some really odd messages on the race control boards that we get here in the commentary box.
Cool, thank you. Thanks for putting me to air.
8:41, it says track clear. Well, the track's clear of cars, but it's not. Normally track clear means you can go on it, right? So, which is clearly not the case with a red flag. I think if it's a manhole cover, then that is the session totaled. And it's really frustrating timing for all of us who are trying to get a picture of what things might be looking like in terms of the order this weekend, because we've had a handful of the top cars running on the soft tyre, but neither of the Ferraris, not Max Verstappen, not Oscar Piastri. And they're not now also going to get, if it is a manhole cover, I can't imagine them getting the session going again. So then we're also not going to get the race simulation runs. So three of us.
Are you saying no long run corner? That's my favourite part of free practice too.
I was looking forward to Abby's introduction, because this is my favourite part of the entire second practice commentary is the co-commentator's introduction to long run corner. I don't know whether you were prepared for that or not, Abby.
I was definitely not prepared for that, as I was running from Paddock Club to the comms box.
Had the producer warned you about it before you came on air?
Yeah, I get a lot of information from the producer.
Which is not like the rest of us.
I definitely was not warned about it.
So he didn't give you enough information this time round.
Yeah, so we got 19 minutes of filling, or 16 minutes and 28 seconds of filling, I think, probably.
We have.
Yeah.
To touch back on, you mentioned Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen is in 9th place. Lewis Hamilton in 10th, who actually set a whisker off what George Russell set of the fastest first sector. So was looking pretty decent. Lance Stroll 11th, Gasly 12th, Sainz 13th, who again was looking strong before he got some traffic of Esteban Ocon. Piastri down in 14th place, has not set, I believe, a lap time on the soft tyre. But Rosanna, you have more information on this manhole cover.
I think it's sort of good news in a way, because of course in 2023 it totaled Carlos Sainz's Ferrari, whereas this is, what I'm hearing, more precautionary. So perhaps the FIA and the race director have seen something that they're not liking, which could have led to maybe a big accident. So that's maybe why the red flag has been flown. I'm just seeing a vehicle going up the start-finish straight the wrong way towards the back end of the circuit, and that is where the manhole cover is, I'm being told. So hopefully we'll get some visuals of it soon. They've got to show us what's going on, but towards the end of the lap, a precautionary red flag because a manhole cover, I assume, was coming loose, or they felt it was soon to sort of break away from the pavement or the asphalt.
So the thing is, the reason why I'm saying that with 15 minutes to go we're probably not going to get the rest of the session is because if a manhole cover comes loose, that obviously means that whatever was keeping it in the ground beforehand has broken. So they've got to mend that and then find a way to keep the manhole cover down again, and usually that involves some kind of welding. And so that isn't going to happen in the space of 15 minutes. Even if they can establish what's wrong, it's the sort of thing that they'd end up having to fix overnight. So it's a bit unfortunate, but nowhere near as bad as the situation was in 2023, Abby.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly, going back to what Rosanna said, I think it's good that they've spotted it this early, because it wasn't spotted early in 2023, and it amounted to, I think, a whole chassis change for Carlos going into the next day. So good to catch it early. It creates a bit less work for the teams and less risk. But yeah, it's a bit frustrating. We're not able to see. And actually, I would say frustrating for the likes of Oscar, who didn't get to do a proper run on the soft tyre. There's a lot of drivers that didn't, but he's one of them.
So I've got an update from the FIA. They say, just confirming really what Rosanna's been reporting from the pit lane, following a marshal report of a possible loose manhole cover before turn 17. Is that the penultimate
That's
corner?
just outside our commentary
just outside,
box.
yeah, exactly, which is actually where some of the problems were in 2023. Race control were unable to confirm this information from the CCTV available. The session has been red flagged as a precautionary measure, and race control personnel are currently on site assessing the situation.
So plenty of drivers then are still staying in their cars. Oscar Piastri, he watches on, 13 minutes, 16, 15, 14 seconds of the session remaining. He'll be hoping that it gets back underway, because he didn't really have a chance to set a lap time on the soft tyre, as the fountain is giving a display in this red flag interval. As the lights continue to shine bright here, fans are still continuing to try and keep warm in the grandstands. But who would you say, Abby? I mean, my rookie of the year so far was Hadjar, but I think that might be edging now. I might be changing my mind towards Antonelli, because he's sitting second in the timing sheets at the moment. Okay, it's only free practice, but he had a really strong Brazilian Grand Prix last time out.
Yeah, I mean, I love how it's always changing. I think everyone's shown flashes of really good pace. There's obviously Ollie Behrman's had some really good results recently, getting a lot of points. Actually, he's scored in the last couple of races. He's scored the same amount of points as Oscar Piastri. So I think that also goes to show how good of a few races Ollie's had and how much Oscar has struggled a bit. But going back to the rookies, I think Ollie's done a brilliant job recently. Antonelli outperforming the likes of George Russell. George is very experienced. He is the number one driver without a doubt at Mercedes, and he is. I think he's done an incredible job this year, George. But the last couple of race weekends, Antonelli's had the edge on him. I mean, it's been really great, and Isaac, he had a really great Zandvoort, of course, and had that momentum. They've all had their own little flashes, and it's really nice to see that they are improving and they're getting more to grips with this car. Okay, of course, this is the last year of this car, and it's all going to change next year, and then they've got a whole lot of new things to learn, but so do the experienced drivers. So for them to jump in on the last year of this iteration, it's incredibly difficult. So for them to have adapted and learned this quickly, I think they're all doing a really good job, to be honest.
They are, and we just saw some pictures of the chapel in the paddock. Someone was getting married down there. Obviously, Jacques Villeneuve got married there in 2023. Whether you knew about it or not. So, and a big Cadillac, I think that was, made of Lego.
Yeah, bright pink or baby pink Cadillac, completely made out of Lego. It was going around while some of the drivers were doing a track walk. I saw some photos. They took it on a little cruise around the circuit. So, yeah, very, very entertaining. And I mean, getting married in the F1 paddock, where else can you do it other than Vegas? I think Elvis is the one that's the I don't know what the word is for it. I have to say I've not been married, so I don't know. But kind of
read your learnt about you.
read your vows and so on and so forth. So yeah, where else other than Vegas?
Well, maybe that's where Harry is. He's found someone to get married to down in the paddock. But no start time is yet, as we're just looking outside. The track supervisor or supervision truck is just going past as someone climbs out of it to have a look, and it's driving off now. So that potentially could be a good sign that we hope will be back underway shortly, with just under 10 minutes of the session left remaining. As still looking busy out on the strip, lights illuminated, city that never sleeps. And trust me, from the noise outside my hotel, I can confirm that. All the way through the night, the fire heaters are going in the hospitalities, and through the paddock, people wrapped up in scarves, woolly hats, coats, and it's probably one of the only races of the year. I don't think I even took my woolly hat and my coat I took my coat to Silverstone, but certainly not my my woolly hat, Andrew.
Well, I've been at a race at the Nürburgring when it was actually snowing.
What year was that?
It was 1997.
Oh, I remember that one.
You weren't even born. I was.
Yes, that was a trick. I mean, the Nürburgring was always a funny one for that. But and if you hold a race at the Nürburgring in October, which I think that one was, then you're asking for trouble, really. But I don't think, when the Las Vegas Grand Prix was first announced, I don't think anyone in Formula One really imagined initially that it would be this kind of race, but very quickly the teams started to learn that the temperatures here in Nevada in November can be very, very cold. It hasn't actually been as cold as some of the scare stories that there used to be going around Formula 1 before that first race. People were talking about 3 or 4 degree temperatures, which is what we were discovering in Flagstaff a couple of days ago, Alice, but thankfully not on our little road trip to the Grand Canyon and back, but not here in Las Vegas, fortunately. But yeah, it looks like something's happening in the Racing Bulls pit. They're taking the tyre warmers off, and there's a McLaren mechanic in the pit lane about to indicate to one of the drivers to come out of the garage, by the looks of it, which is weird because I think we had it a couple of races ago. The timing screens are not really giving us a lot of help. The red flag disappeared, and there's been no indication that the session will restart yet, and nothing from the FIA yet either. Oh, I can see the FIA press person is typing as I speak on the WhatsApp channel.
I've just seen on the timing screen, session will resume at 20:54 local time. So all the cars, majority of the cars are now in pit lane queuing. As it stands at the moment, we have 7 minutes and 14 seconds of the session remaining. So session will restart in 1 minute's time. So that will go down, of course, to 6 minutes of the session remaining. That doesn't give the drivers, Abby, a long time to get out, get their tyres up to temperature. Of course, when they're sitting queuing in the pit lane, and I'm looking and I'm thinking that's majority of the F1 field that are queuing in the pit lane, they haven't got the tyre warmers on. Those tyre temperatures, they're going to start to drop.
It almost feels like we're getting a little quali simulation now. This is what it's going to be like, and everyone wants track positioning. We've got the two Saubers at the front, and although not everyone opting for the soft tyres, I think a lot of them didn't manage to set a time on the soft, so they'll be wanting to go out and experiment with that and improve upon their time. As even Charles Leclerc sat in P3, he's sat there in the medium. So there's definitely still time out there for the drivers. But as you say, in this short period of time, it's going to be very hard for them to generate the temperature. But the benefit of this situation is they're all going to be in sync because they're all going out at the same time. In a session, you get drivers on different run plans, so drivers will be pitting and going out at different times of the session, so that's why we see the traffic situation. Whereas in this, it should be a bit more sensible. Well, they don't take my word for it.
Well, you know, it is free practice too. hugely important, defines the grid.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely doesn't. But a bit of excitement for us in the final 6 minutes of the session. The green light is illuminated at the end of the pit lane as plenty of drivers pulling away pretty slowly, trying to open up a gap to those in front. And I was just trying to see, it is a mixture of drivers on a different variation of compounds. Hulkenberg, Hadjar, Lawson have gone out on the medium tyre. So is Alex Albon, Stroll, Alonso, and out as well is Norris. So Leclerc on the soft tyre, Antonelli soft. So this order, I expect, Abby, if they don't get held up and we don't get any yellow flags, should change.
Yeah, I mean, as long as there was a little bit of rain in the air as well earlier. I think we said spitting. So with them not driving on the circuit, it wouldn't have moved it that much. So it might have that initial slippiness that was at the start of the session that Ollie Behrman kind of reported. That may come back into players. The only person that hasn't gone out, I think, on the green flag is Oscar Piastri. He's still sat in the garage. He's waiting, leaving it till the last minute, probably to keep the tyre warmers on for as long as possible. As you said, keep the tyre blankets on, maintaining that tyre temp just helps him out on that outlap.
Well, something broke. Gearbox. Can I shift on it?
Do not shift.
So disaster for Charles Leclerc at the end, towards the end of this free practice 2, and he's pulled off. I'm just having a look where that is. That looks like just before turn 6. And we almost sat back in our seats, didn't we, Abby? Because it looked like he was just off for a drive around Las Vegas. He's pulled off in a safe place, so this shouldn't be. There's no yellow flag out, so good job by Charles Leclerc, but this is not what he needs. He was out on the medium tyre, and it was looking like he was going to do a pretty decent job. Fred Vasseur looking very disappointed on the pit wall. So well done for Charles for pulling out the way. So that does allow the likes of Norris, Antonelli, Piastri, importantly, who's down in 14th, to get a run on the soft tyre.
Yeah, it was almost comical when it come to his onboard. We were like, where is he? He's just gone for a drive around Vegas, somewhere elsewhere. And as we're now hearing Max Verstappen on board, he's on his first push lap. He's managed to generate the tyre temp. He's on the mediums, going into the braking zone. Is he going to get any oversteer? It is looking fairly controlled, although he's a second and a half off of his best in this first sector.
I'm surprised because Verstappen didn't get a soft tyre qualifying simulation run, so he's obviously gone out on the medium tyres. They look like they're new mediums, or at least I can't tell because the timing screens have gone a bit weird, but maybe he's doing a race simulation run, because which you might suspect with that 1.5 second off first sector, just a short run race simulation run that he can get in the last 3 minutes. But he's obviously not too worried about that qualifying simulation run. He's gone out on the medium tyres to try them out. I'll see if I can work out whether they used on you.
And another red flag. So I wonder if that is for Charles Leclerc, but he was pulled out in a very safe place. Potentially could be this drain cover. Our timing screens were going a bit crazy. It was showing Leclerc that was on a soft tyre but then on a medium tyre. I think potentially this could be for Charles Leclerc because he has pulled off in a safe place. However, he is behind the Armco, that if someone did at high speed have a failure or a big lockup, potentially go into that Armco, which then could shift into Charles Leclerc's car. But we'll keep you updated. But that's frustration for, I would probably say, Oscar Piastri and several other drivers out there that didn't get a proper run on a soft tyre.
I'd be really surprised if that was for Charles, because he's well out the way and in a really safe area for them to recover the car. So I'll be amazed if it is for that. I would be surprised if it is maybe the drain cover's not reacted or they've not fixed it as well as they wanted maybe, and they've seen the same indications to why they stopped it in the first place. I mean, I'm sure we will get some more information on that soon, but potentially it was for Charles Leclerc, but a double waved yellow in that sector. He was well behind the barrier. I mean, these barriers are very strong here. I mean, you'd have to do a very good job to have managed to go into Charles's car.
I agree. You couldn't. I don't think you could have hit him unless you're in some kind of 200 mile an hour bulldozer hitting that wall. The FIA said on the message that I was telling you that they were writing while we were speaking a minute or two ago. Following inspection, we're confident everything's in a suitable condition to resume the session. It could be a number of things. If there were double waved yellow flags, Abby, at that point where Charles Leclerc went off, I wasn't sure where it was. Was it at the end of the strip?
Yeah, there was no yellow flags at all.
No yellows.
So,
okay.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Rosanna has got an update for us.
Yeah, we are being told it's track maintenance that has meant they've had to fly the red flag again. So I think it must be that drain cover is not satisfactory and not worth the risk with so little minutes on the clock. So yes, another red flag and a bit of a headache for the race director and all the team that are going to make the track safe if that drain cover is coming a little loose. And of course, then do they have to inspect the entire circuit, 6.2 kilometres worth of it, to check all the other manhole covers?
They absolutely will, Rosanna. Yes, 100%. What's weird is that they inspected it, decided they could give it the all clear, go again, and then suddenly decide that they were wrong. But yeah, I mean, obviously the manhole covers will be all of a similar design, or at least the vast majority of them, you would think. So they cannot afford to take the risk of not checking them all. So it's a long night ahead for the track officials.
So we're just listening to the onboard replay of Charles Leclerc. So let's have a little listen in. An issue with his gearbox as they cut away from that. But yeah, the track maintenance cars go past our commentary box window, but the session has been brought to a close because that is time up, and it's going to be Lando Norris who is going to be top of the times, the 1:33.602. Just fraction of a second ahead of Antonelli, 200ths to be precise, in second place. Charles Leclerc, who of course session ended with that gearbox issue, in third place, 1.5 tenths off Lando Norris. Hulkenberg, a further 3 tenths back in fourth. Hadjar, who we just saw on screen, had a bit of a shake of the head, so clearly not particularly happy maybe, well, I guess, with that manhole cover, but a decent run for him in fifth place. Lawson just behind in sixth, 3 tenths of a second off. So the times between that pack there are pretty close. Russell, who's slightly further back, who didn't get to set a proper lap on that soft tyre, in seventh, but he was looking pretty handy in the first sector, set the fastest of anyone before our first red flag. Alex Albon in eighth, Max Verstappen in ninth, didn't set a lap time on the soft tyre, so potentially could have seen him catapulted up towards the top of the timing screens. Hamilton rounds up the top 10, and then Stroll, Gasly, Sainz, Piastri in 14th. He'll be hoping for a better day tomorrow. Tsunoda, Colapinto, Behrman, Alonso 18th, Ocon 19th, and Bortoletto down in 20th. Rosanna.
Oh, I've come back through from the pit lane into the paddock, and it is a busy paddock, Alice, and I do feel that there is still rain in the air, but I think we got away with it when it came to the weather. I've just seen Lewis Hamilton make his way through the paddock. His incredible helmet for Las Vegas, so glittery, sparkling as he crossed the paddock, but lots of people here, I think, having enjoyed what they've seen, and I think we got a lot more running than we thought we might, even with those 2 red flags.
It certainly was, Rosanna. And guys, anything standing out in this free practice session other than the drain cover, of course?
Well, it's obviously encouraging for Lando Norris. After a difficult first session, his momentum continues as he marches towards what he hopes will be his first World Championship. It's looking, as far as we can tell, it's not that easy. It's a sort of session where it's not that easy to tell the real order, but it looks like McLaren, Mercedes and Ferrari are pretty well matched. We didn't get to see Max Verstappen on the soft tyre, so we can't draw any conclusions about Red Bull. And the only other thing I would say is that Oscar Piastri seems like he's got quite a bit of homework to do overnight.
And how about you, Abby? Thanks for joining us in the commentary box. Is there anything that stood out for you during that free practice?
I think Kimi Antonelli done a really brilliant job. Okay, his teammate didn't manage to set a time on the soft tyre, but yeah, sat pretty in P2 and continuing to outperform his teammate.
Just very briefly, we've got another message from Race Control, and yes, they're saying that the that some FIA personnel stayed on site at that place where turn 17, where the manhole cover was looked at before, and they saw the cut. They saw it moving as cars passed over it, so they had to red flag the session, obviously.
So the correct thing to do. We have got an F1 Academy session that will be out, so they of course don't have there's nowhere near as much downforce or as a Formula One car, but they'll be hoping to make sure that is all sorted for tomorrow's free practice session. And temperatures will continue to be chilly. Rosanna will be pleased that she avoided the rain, but that is Thursday done here in Vegas. It was Ferrari that took first blood in free practice 1, but Lando Norris was back to the top of the timesheets here in free practice 2. We're back on Sports Extra tomorrow, that's Saturday, for free practice 3 at 25 past midnight. But you can join us for the preview show on BBC 5 Live at 9 p.m, that's Friday, where we'll be previewing what could be a pivotal weekend in the championship. Thank you, Abby, thank you, Andrew, and Rosanna for braving the chilly pit lane, and we will see you all tomorrow.